Hello and welcome to How To Automotive. Today is a Giving Automotive episode, and today is a special episode because it's sponsored by you guys. So the last couple episodes, I had a donate button created where you guys can donate to the program because you guys were asking about it. So you guys donated a bunch of money, and now we're going to take that money and put it to good use. So we're going to go to the store and get some more parts for Nick's truck. He's the naval officer that's serving in Afghanistan right now, and we're going to surprise him with a repaired truck. I will link up in the cards, or the card above my head, or the in cards at the end of the video, or the description below the previous video, so you guys can get caught up on that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do a tune-up on it. We're going to do cap, rotors, and wires and make sure it's running good. When we first fired it off, it had a slight little misfire. We're going to see if we can cure that up. We don't know the condition of any of these parts, so basically we're just going to start from fresh by replacing all the parts, and you guys help pay for that, and we want to thank you so much for supporting the program. So now let's get to it. So we went to O'Reilly's Auto Part and we picked up some tune-up parts here. We got the spark plugs, we got the cap, rotor, ignition wires, and we also got a little bit of dielectric grease to put on the wires when we do this job. It's not sponsored by O'Reilly's, but I like to thank them for having all these parts in stock for us. So the first thing we need to do is get the air snorkel out of here. If you remember in episode 1, it didn't have an intake manifold. All this was torn apart. We put this all back together and got it running. So now we're going to take it back apart and get it running better. So we're going to take the air and snorkel off by loosening up the clamps here at the mass airflow sensor on the air box here, and then also the two hose clamps on the throttle body up here. So we're going to loosen up these two clamps, and then we're going to pull this snorkel off. So on these old Ford trucks, it's pretty simple to work on. There's plenty of room and access to all these ignition parts, the cap, rotor, wires, spark plugs. It's pretty easy to get to. So if I was working at the shop, I would just rip all the ignition wires and everything off, and I wouldn't worry too much about how they're routed because I have access to information that tells me how everything is routed. But in this case, we don't have that information. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one wire off, one spark plug it off, and kind of do one at a time. So now that we got the air snorkel off, we're going to get the cap and rotor off right here. The first thing we need to do is remove the two screws holding it down, so one on each side of it. So on this particular case, they're Phillips screws, so we're just going to spin these out with this Phillips screwdriver. All right, so now we're just going to pull it out of our way as far as we can, and we're going to swap out the rotor here. So we're just going to pull the rotor off. It just slides on. As you can see, it's got a little bit of wear on it. Yeah, it's got some wear on it. So we're going to swap it out with our new one. Always match your parts up. Make sure these are the right stuff, which is good. This can only go on one way. There's a groove here, and there's a notch in the top of the rotor here. So we'll put that on until it's fully seated, like that. Now we're going to take our new ignition cap, and we're going to go ahead and put that on. So if you look, the cap has a squared end and a round end. So there's a round end on the distributor, and then on the other side will be a squared end. All right, so what we're going to do is get this as far back as we can so we can get the new cap installed. So you may have to take some of the wires off so you can get it out of your way a little bit, and which I'm going to do here. So I got a coil wire pulled off and one of the spark plug wires. Like normally, I actually said I would just rip all this off and then just look up the wiring diagram, how it routes and everything. But since we're on location, we don't have that luxury of looking everything up, so we have to kind of take a little time and do it. So now I'm just going to put the cap on. Okay, so now we've got the new cap on. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start here, and we're going to pull one wire off, change the spark plug, and then we'll take our wire set here, and I'm going to lay them all out here, and then we're going to match up the wire that best fits it and then put it on. Like I said, normally I would just rip this apart. So now I'm just going to pull this. This one's probably the hardest one because it's behind this bracket here. So I don't have a whole lot for tools because I'm working mobile. I'm not traditionally a mobile technician, and so just kind of got to do with what we got and work with what we got, and that may be getting creative with some of these, coming up with some ways to get these off, or doing different repairs that you would normally not do because you're working mobile and you don't have the option of carrying your whole toolbox around. So now we're going to take these spark plugs out. Okay, so you're going to need on the Ford, on this old Ford, you're going to need a 13/16 spark plug socket. I'm using one that has a wobble extension already pre-built into it with about a 5 or 6 inch extension on it to get to it. And as you can see, with that wobble, it fits perfect. And I like to use the angled flex head ratchets to do it. You don't have to use a Snap-on brand, but these work where the angles like that works really well for these type of jobs where you can get in here and crack these free. And when you're doing them, I like to support the head of the ratchet while you're pulling, and that prevents the socket from cocking on it. And what that does is it prevents it from breaking the spark plug. So if you're reusing the spark plug, or when you're going to tighten the spark plug back down, having that support so it doesn't cock on there is key, so you don't break your spark plug, your new spark plug. Also, since it's all cast iron, non-aluminum, I like to use pneumatic tools or power tools like this. Once you crack them free, I always crack them free by hand, and then you can take them out with tools like this. As you can see, they've been in there for a while. They got a little bit of wear, not the worst shape. So for general tune-up information, usually there's a sticker on the hood that'll tell you what the spark plug gap is. If the car has ignition timing, it'll also tell you what the car came equipped with, such as air injection, a 3-way cat. All that information will be right here on the underhood label. And also you have the wiring diagram, or the vacuum diagram, sorry. Vacuum diagram, so how all the vacuum lines route on the engine. So this is a very useful sticker. So we're going to take our new spark plug and we're going to check the gap. So I always recommend you check the gap. A lot of spark plugs, modern spark plugs on modern cars, they come pre-gapped, and you're not actually supposed to use gapping tools. And if the gap is out, then you should take the spark plugs back and change them out or swap them out. But on these older vehicles like this, the gap is settable because the tip is much more durable, and you can use a tool like this to gap it. So the underhood label says that the spark plug gap is set at 42 to 46 thousandths. So we're going to use our tool here, and we're going to just slide it in here. You don't want to pressure or anything. You just want to slide it until it stops. And when it stops, that's your reading on the gauge here. So we're at about right at 46 thousandths. So this is in spec. If you wanted to tighten it up, you can lightly tap it like this. Lightly tap it, and that will close the gap up. Or you can use the this portion of the tool where you hook it in here. If you want to spread it wider, you would hook it in here like this and give it a little pry, lightly pry, and that would open the gap up. So we're going to go ahead and put this back in. I always recommend starting all spark plugs by hand. That way you don't cross thread it. If you cross thread spark plugs, it could be a nightmare. So now we're going to tighten this up. So a lot of spark plugs have a torque spec. Like I said, I don't know the torque spec, so we're just going to tighten it up until it's snug and about a quarter turn more. Usually they're about 16 to 18 foot-pounds of torque on a spark plug. Okay, so I went ahead and popped the wire that we took off here off the cap here, and I matched it up with the wire that I think best fits the replacement wire. So now we're going to go ahead and put this in here. So this one, on this particular one, we have to go under the bracket here. It's kind of a weird situation, and then put it on there. Oh, also before I forget, I'm going to put just a little bit of dielectrical grease on here. All right. You want to listen and feel for the little click where the head of the spark plug wire makes contact with the spark plug and clicks on there. Sometimes you have to wiggle them around to kind of get that feel. It's a kind of a feel thing. There, it clicked. I just felt it click on. So now I'm going to pull the wire through here and try to route it where it's not rubbing on anything inside here, where it's going to chafe on the wire here. So I think I got a pretty good route it right there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out where it went on from the old cap and transfer that over to the new cap. So if you look at the square portion here, and we got 1, 2 is just where the wire came off, so we're going to do that here. So we got the square where it mounted here, 1, 2, so this is where this wire mounted up. We're also going to put a little bit of that grease on the tip here, and this will help make good contact and also keep it from corroding. So we're just going to do that for the same thing. We're just going to pull one wire off, change the spark plug out, put the new spark plug in, match up our wire over here, put a little bit of the dielectrical grease that's designed to work with this stuff on the tabs, and just keep doing it one by one until all the spark plugs are changed. Okay. So now we got the wires and spark plugs all changed out and routed. So now we're going to go ahead and put our air snorkel back on. So we'll go ahead and put it back on, and then tighten up all the clamps, get the vent tube hooked up. So we got our tune-up stuff all settled, and we're about to fire the thing up. And last time I was here, I remembered the positive cable here broke right here, and these type of cables here with the paint on them are the worst type of battery cable ends you could possibly buy. So I ran back down to the parts store and picked up a couple new battery cable ends. I'm going to replace those real quick. So now we know that the battery sound, the tune-up sound, we got the fluids changed out of it, we got the car running, we got the interior detailed. Pretty much the only thing left is the exterior, and then get it down to the smog shop and get it smogged and registered for Nick when he comes back from Afghanistan. So right now I'm going to get these battery terminals on here, and then we're going to fire this off and make sure that the tune-up, everything was successful with the tune-up. Now I got some new battery terminal ends on there. I got the timing light hooked up to it. We're going to fire this thing off, and then we're going to double check the timing to make sure the timing's set. Sounds like you're running on all 6, so that's a good sign. So when you go to check ignition timing with a timing light, you need to make sure the vehicle is at normal operating temperatures, and then you're going to look for the timing mark on the crank pulley. There's going to be a alignment indicator and a mark on the pulley. On some vehicles, like this particular vehicle, you would have to put it into timing check mode by pulling a spout connector here. So this one, you would pull this spout connector, and that would put it into the computer into a certain mode where you can check the timing. If you check on the underhood sticker here, it'll tell you how to put it in the timing check mode. Also, it will tell you the timing specs. So you would check it, and then you would adjust your distributor left or right. There's a bolt on it you would loosen up. So that's how you would adjust the timing on this vehicle. But I was noticing on this particular label that on this model, the timing is controlled by the PCM and no adjustment was needed. Also, the idle was also controlled. So this is the first time this truck has moved in 4 years. Now we're going to back it out, and we're going to clean up the windshield because I cannot see out of the windshield, and we're going to give it a little quick test drive around the block. Make sure it's firing on all 6 cylinders. All right, we're going to go for a little spin, and we're going to basically see how she does. We're going to get the rust off the rotors and see how the clutch feels. We have no idea. And also maybe even test out the AC. We have no idea if any of this works. Whoa, a bunch of dust just blew out of the dash. I'm not sure if the AC is working or not, but we'll find out. Let's go for a quick little cruise. I'm not going to go far because we have no registration here. Running on all 6 cylinders, that's a good thing. It actually feels really good. I'm actually surprised after sitting this long. Brake pedals breaking in the brakes here. Make sure we got good brakes. So we're not going to go out on the main streets, we're just going to cruise around the neighborhood. Just go through the gears a little bit here and see how she feels clutch wise. And No idea. This is all unknown to us. So if you guys are interested in supporting the Giving Automotive program, on the How to Automotive website, there's a Giving Automotive page with a donate button, so you can donate, or you can PayPal me at howtoautomotive@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much for all your support, and thank you for watching and sharing this video. Thank you again for watching.